Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Next Level Leap podcast. I'm so excited to introduce you to Anna Powers. She has an extensive copywriting background, and she's also the founder and CEO of the Clickworthy Copywriting Certification. So welcome, Anna.
Thank you, Laura. I am so excited to be here and just to have the chance to chat with you. I always enjoy catching up with you.
Yeah, we are such like-minded souls. You were one of our Fractional Freedom Consulting students, and now you're in the Abundant Consultant Mastermind. But share with us a little bit about your business background before you decided to round out your skill set with consulting.
Yes. So I started my professional career as a civil litigator. So I practiced law actually for 8.5 years. And I got about 5 years into my practice and thought, there must be a better way to use these skills. There were parts of the job that I loved, which was really like the analysis and the putting together the arguments. There were parts that I didn't love, like not much human contact. And I mean, you know me well enough to know I'm a real people person. I like interacting with people and brainstorming ideas. And it was just a lot of researching in an office by yourself. So 5 years into my law practice, I started a business. Actually started in a completely different niche, but found copywriting about 2 years in. And that just, once I started writing copy and studying the craft of conversion copywriting, I knew I was home. I had found that thing. So I did my first 6 figures in business actually while I was still practicing law full time.
Oh my
and
gosh.
it was all done for you copywriting. So I was not married at the time, so I just spent every waking hour, working for incredible business owners, putting together email campaigns and sales pages. And then in 2018, went full time in my business, started offering some leverage programs around messaging. So I got really interested in what you were doing with consulting, because we're now at the level with my copywriting that for me to take a done for you project, we're really looking at the high 7-8 figure entrepreneurs. I might take a handful a year. I'm primarily training and certifying copywriters that can go out and build businesses like what I built, when I was just thinking there's got to be a better way than law. And so, but I love the strategy of it. And I have a lot of experience, particularly in the online courses, coaching, info product space. I've written for some incredible people like Michael Hyatt and co. And, big launches. And I really enjoy it. So when I found out that you were doing fractional freedom, I just thought, well, this is a no-brainer, because what better way to leverage your skill set, still be incredibly valuable to a company, but not be in that, not be the one who's doing all the doing. Once you get to a certain stage of, having grown your business to a certain level, it's kind of, gets dicey. You got to charge such high rates to be able to justify the value of your time when your business reaches a certain level. So I think consulting, allows you to still use those skills and make it make sense for your business as well.
That makes so much sense. I love that you've shared this progress and this journey of getting really good at copywriting, understanding the nuances of it, certifying other people in your process and methodology. And then what I'm hearing you say is just feeling like you're ready for that bigger picture, like feeling like you want to work on all of the strategy. You don't necessarily want to be the doing pieces. Like every company needs the doers, right? Like that's what makes the strategy work. At what point do you think people, just speaking to other done for you service providers like copywriters, at what point do you think that it might be a sign that they're outgrowing that stage of their business?
Yeah. Well, I think one thing is when you're so constantly booked up that you're literally just turning people away. And frankly, that's actually a big reason why we started the certification, is because we saw such a huge uptick in the demand for done for you copywriters in 2020 in the wake of everything that happened that year. And so I was just one person and I couldn't possibly take all these jobs. And so I was sending a lot of business away. And so I think when you're at that place where your calendar is so full that, if you're doing done for you, whether it's copy or Facebook ads or anything service based, that it's like, people want to work with you, but there's no more you to go around. I think looking at consulting is a great option, because because, what I learned from you, when you're working as a consultant, you're working with people who have the doers in place.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're being deprived of the doers.
Right.
You're just setting the high level picture. And frankly, that's what I was doing with my biggest copywriting clients, anyways.
Right.
I was already doing all the strategy and, a lot of the, oh, okay, we're mapping out this email sequence. Well, let's add this upsell, or, let's make sure that we think about this additional kind of reminder for this person who signed up for the thing but didn't show up. Let's write a different message for them. So you're doing a lot of the strategy anyways. And I think when you're getting so booked out, that there's no more space, consulting it's a great time to look at consulting.
Yeah, that's such great advice. And then also, what about sort of that internal journey? So that's more of like the customer facing, right? But what is it like? At what point do you feel like you've accomplished something, like you've mastered it, right? And you're ready to master something else? Is that part of it too?
I definitely think that's a huge part of it, because if you're going to get into something like consulting, you want to feel confident with whatever curveballs are thrown your way.
Yeah.
And so I think you will start to know internally if you relish those challenges.
Yeah.
And you think, when you hear something, a client comes to you with sort of a curveball question, you're like, oh, interesting. Let's think about how we could work with that. And instead of being frightened by it, you're like, ooh, intrigued by it.
Mm-hmm.
And and it's probably, I mean, you can speak to this better than I think, Laura, but I would imagine that there are particular personality types that are perhaps a little more geared toward consulting, or maybe it's not personality types, but like, if you're someone who just enjoys a challenge and
Yes.
enjoys digging in and kind of like unraveling all the pieces, it's probably going to be a better option for you than if you're someone who prefers to have, an A to Z checklist that you're just kind of like dot, 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 checking it off. So I've always found, I mean, that's one of the things I loved about law, that I'm so happy I get to still do in this current iteration of my work, is looking at all the different angles and putting together the best argument or the best message or the
Yeah.
best plan.
That's so good. And you still get to do that from a messaging standpoint when you're consulting. And most of my clients that I've worked with at some point had to redo their messaging to support the strategy. And that's been really fascinating. As I'm starting to certify more and more consultants and seeing who is a great fit to continue on into the mastermind, what types of people, it really is that lifelong learner personality. It really is that growth oriented person. It's really interesting because, for many of us, we might accomplish something or we might master something and it loses its interest. I know that I'm that way. The thing about consulting is that you never really fully master it. There's always a different perspective or angle. There's a new way of thinking. There's a way to invert the problem, or there's a strategy that you learned on one client that you could apply to future clients that you start using to build your toolbox. And it's really interesting because in Fractional Freedom, I try to put like the base level toolbox in place. And then in the mastermind, that's where I'm really bringing more challenges to the table of like, this is what I'm seeing with clients. These are trends I'm seeing. And I think probably anyone who's listening, who's built like the two of us, we're not really super interested in entry level business conversations. While we could both probably be more than capable of having them, they're not as interesting. They're not as motivating. They're not as exciting to us as more advanced business problems. And that's what I have loved about being a consultant, to be honest, and just the intellectual stimulation. Because for so many of us, who are listening, it's like when you're not having intellectually stimulating business conversations, I'm changing diapers. I am, chasing a tennis ball, which is, it involves strategy. So I guess that's a theme in that area of my life. But we're managing sports schedules. We're doing all of these things. And it's just really nice to like stretch yourself in your work. And I've found that to be really rewarding.
Yeah, agree. I mean, I was the before I went to law school, I did teach high school English for 1 year, and I was the total dork who walked into the classroom and saw all the books and was like, yes,
Yes.
all these books. Oh my gosh, I'm so at home. And it's just, I think you said it best when you said lifelong learner of, oh, let me grab a little of this and a little of that and see how this can kind of shape a perspective and offer a new viewpoint. And I will also say, from a consulting standpoint, the opportunity to be involved with businesses and owners who have built incredible businesses that are making huge impacts in the world. And I've been able to do that with copywriting as well. Some of the people I've gotten to write for, I used to follow them,
Yes.
before I had a business, I followed them. And so it's really, I consider it just an honor to be able to speak some wisdom into those businesses and to help them further their mission, and the opportunity to get behind some missions that are really also close to your heart and impactful to causes that you care about, or they're just accomplishing things in the world and the market that you believe in so strongly.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you say that, because I didn't expect to have the client base that is my fastest growing segment right now, which is nonprofit. And so I have traditionally, as part of my consulting career, served female founded 7 and 8 figure info product businesses. But in the last 6 months or so, a nonprofit component has started to grow exponentially. And my first project, and this is through Notre Dame University and their Lab for Economic Development, is through how this work is coming to me. And my first client is wrapping up right now as a project. And it is a nonprofit that helps underestimated aspiring Black female entrepreneurs in Nashville get started in entrepreneurship. And it's a 12-week in-person course. It's called the Academy. If anybody's listening and you know somebody who's a good fit, make sure you send them their way. When you go to their website, you're going to see a webinar funnel, which is, not typical in nonprofit. But I taught them what it was and showed them how to build it. And we helped them understand what good looks like. And they tripled their enrollment. And it
Oh, I
was
love that.
within like a 3-month period. And it was so rewarding to think like, gosh, here I am, a business consultant. When people ask me what I do, I'm like, oh, business strategy. I train consultants. I do some consulting. I have a consulting mastermind. But it was like kind of mind blowing. Like all of a sudden I pictured all of these people sitting in a classroom, learning about entrepreneurship, some of whom will go on to grow high impact businesses in the Nashville area. Who may have considered themselves the type of person that couldn't be an entrepreneur, right? And this program is transforming that belief as well as skill building, and thinking like, wow, I just did that like over Zoom, like it's amazing. And it's so it's really exciting to see the impact that we can make as consultants, both in the for-profit and nonprofit space.
Yes, I think it's so exciting to be able to back in a tangible way businesses that you believe in and lend your skill set and your gifts to support their missions. And it's like, I believe in so many ways, we're created for relationship, and that's what business is too. It's solving problems for people. So, when we get to build those meaningful relationships, even as we're doing work, I think it's just such a gift. And I really think that's what work is intended to be. Whatever you're doing, like it should feel like your work matters. And when you put your head, cheesy as it sounds, on the pillow at night, that you think, wow, like I helped someone move forward today.
Yes.
And that's powerful.
It is. And I think being motivated by that relationship also is probably the characteristic of a really good consultant. I think
Yes.
sometimes we think about the consultants in a traditional sense. And I have people who come my way sometimes that they see it as, working in a big 6 firm, being in a whiteboard with a pantsuit on. They don't see it in the way that I do it. And in a lot of ways, I fell into it and just had some amazing relationships of people who needed the help that I had to offer, and really built it up from that place. And I think when we do it the way we do it, we approach it in the way that we approach it, where we're emotionally invested which of course we have to make sure that we have really good scope and boundaries around. I think
Yes.
that's one of the mistakes that people make with consulting. You weren't in that category, but some of the people in Fractional Freedom you saw were trying to figure out how to dial that back.
The only reason I probably wouldn't have fallen into that is that I learned so much from doing all the done for you copy that I've
Yeah.
definitely made the scope and boundary mistakes, but I try to learn my lessons, like, not have to go through it three or more times to learn it. Like, let's keep it to 1 to 2.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
I think too, with scope and boundaries, sometimes we see so much opportunity and we get so excited and we want to give them everything. And at the same time, we are really honest, they can't handle it.
Yeah.
Like they can't handle all of the strategy and all of the ideas at the same time anyways. They don't have the capacity for it. They don't have the team size for it. Many of the companies that we're working with are between maybe $5 and $20 million in revenue, maybe one at the lowest. So they're not going to have, a marketing team of 15 people that can implement all the things next week.
Yes.
So, part of what I teach is also like space it out, like space out the strategy, make sure they can do it well, hold their hand through it, then bring in something new, knowing that they may have 1 or 2 people in the marketing function at the most, right?
Yes.
The companies we're working with, and we have to balance it out with the other priorities that are already on their plate. And then with nonprofit, there was even like another layer to that I never really understood because I'm fairly new to nonprofit. I was calling them leads and things like that. And they were all like participants. And I was like, right. Like, I was like, sorry, for profit. This is my for profit language. You can translate it any way you'd like. I would be like money. And they're like impact. I'm like, right.
It's similar. Like I've, worked with people who are writing copy for dentists and, doctors. And it's like, those are patients,
right. Right.
They're not widgets.
Yeah. They're not dollar signs.
Yeah.
It's not about cart value.
Yeah.
But it kind of is. So we have to figure out how to translate it. Right. But it's just so interesting because I really have so much empathy for nonprofit leaders now, because not only is their job to maximize enrollments or participants, but it's also to maximize donor dollars. And so they're wearing 2 different, very important and conflicting marketing hats with 2 different marketing messages. So for example, another nonprofit, as I was sharing with you before we started recording, that I'm getting involved with, helps children of incarcerated adults, right? So the children's parents are in jail, and provides them with support services and free camps and things like that. Well, the message to donors is, stop the cycle, right? Mm-hmm. Like stop the incarceration cycle, break multi-generational patterns, provide them with a support system so they don't end up a statistic, right? Very compelling marketing message for donors. The caretakers, like the single moms or the grandparents raising those kids, they're not thinking about that, right? They're just thinking about like, how do I get through my week? Like, I'm not really worried about my 8-year-old going to jail. I'm more worried about like, what am I going to do with them all summer because I work full time? Like that's more their pain. So it's really interesting to see that challenge and help them navigate that. But they're, it's fascinating. You can probably hear the excitement in my voice and your voice as well. Just thinking about the different challenges and how to overcome them so we can help the companies that we serve make the greatest impact. But when you kind of look out, I mean, you have this great business right now. You've had tremendous success. You're known in the industry as somebody who has accomplished quite a bit with your certification program and celebrity clientele. Like when you look out, how do you see consulting being added into the mix for your company?
Yeah. So we will continue to grow our certification. We just wrapped our best ever launch and put nearly 70 people into the certification for this current round. We then have a follow-on program that's a longer program. Certification is 90 days. That is all focused on building the business of copywriting so that we can kind of like you're training consultants, I'm training copywriters who can go do the doing and really be able to get people results. So where I see consulting fitting into this mix is to allow me to continue doing some of that slightly done for you work, like keeping my hand in the current pulse, not just with our own promotions, because obviously we're running pretty sizable promotions ourselves, but also keeping my hand in some other very successful businesses and making sure that I have my finger on the pulse of what is working in the market right now. Being able to provide that service to those businesses also can be, potentially some great collaboration opportunities should those businesses need qualified copywriters. We have a whole roster. That's a service that we provide for no additional charge to our certified writers, is we have a directory page and they get jobs booked. Someone messaged me recently. She got a 5-figure job just from someone looking at our directory page and reading their bios and, just clicking, and you can connect with all of our writers directly. You don't have to go through me or our company, other than like looking at the page. So I could see there, being potential for, if I'm consulting for, someone who's like, oh, we would love to do this and we need another writer for that. Well, I have a great pool of amazing writers who are hungry for opportunities. And I think just, I love this whole world of strategy and, businesses that are looking to create a positive impact in the world. That's really important to me, that whoever I'm involved with is really doing something that I can feel great about getting behind. And so I just see it being, a handful of high level clients that I work with personally, as I continue to build and serve, the groups that we have.
It's so awesome. I know that you'll attract the right people. It's
I'm
inevitable.
believing it in faith, but I appreciate your
I
belief as well.
because I was hearing you speak and I was like thinking, gosh, I've never worked with a client where I don't like really believe in their mission. And I think
Yeah.
when we put out that excitement about working with clients who have shared values, it really does attract them. Look at that, messaging works.
Go figure.
Right. That's a page from your book. So thank you so much for being here, sharing your experience. If somebody was thinking about joining Fractional Freedom and potentially going into the mastermind, is there any advice or anything that you would want to share with them?
I would just share, it was such an incredible experience. The way, Laura, that you teach and mentor, if anybody listening has never really experienced that directly, Laura just has this like calming presence of, you could be talking about the most complicated thing, but you make it feel so relaxed and easy. And you're a fantastic teacher, and that you're able to present things in a way that just makes them feel like, oh, of course there's that option. Why didn't I think of that? It's right there in front of me. And it's honestly, I take a ton of programs. I love learning, lifelong learner. And it's one of the most well laid out, well thought out programs that I've taken in years. It's just it's very well designed. And that matters, so it's one of the programs that, I'm notorious for grabbing courses. And the way that I look at it is that, hey, if I can get one nugget, I'll make my money back. Like, I'm not, I can apply one little strategy and I'll make the money back from a, $2,000-$3,000 program. But yours, I actually wanted to do every single lesson. I wanted to watch every video, look at every handout, because it's so well organized and you're not giving a bunch of fluff and filler. It's all very pertinent. So I would say to anybody who's interested in consulting, like, it is the program to take, and you will, I think, be delighted with the wealth of knowledge that you're going to gain, because it's not going to it's going to feel like it's all a very natural progression. And then you're going to look back at the end and be like, whoa, I learned so much from this. So yeah, I would say go all in, go for it.
Oh my gosh, that's so good to hear. And thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you so much for sharing that with the listeners. I think a lot of people will be listening to this podcast episode because they'll be curious of whether or not it's a good fit for them. And I think the way you just described it and helped the right person know if it's the fit for them is just, I'm really grateful. Thank you so much for saying that and sharing that.
And I want to share one more thing too. Just the caliber of people that you attracted into the program was a really high bar, and a lot of times we think when we're going into a program, like, I'm going to go because I want this information. I like this teacher, but we'll see who else shows up. And I just loved the conversations in the Slack channel and also on the calls. And you also provided wonderful support, as far as like the touch points that we could have with you and with your team. And so I found that to be also a really valuable aspect of the program was just the caliber, because I think it is a certain caliber of person who knows that consulting is going to be right for them. So you're going to be connecting with other people who have beautiful networks and very generous people who all want to see each other succeed and want to help each other on that path.
Thank you for sharing that. And I was surprised, pleasantly surprised
Yeah.
by the same thing, that people who came into the program, who applied for the program. So if you're listening and you're not sure it's a fit, go ahead and apply. We'll let you know. We'll be really honest with you. But the truth is consulting is probably not for everybody. And it's certainly, I wouldn't say certainly, but it's likely not if you're new to business or that you are new to any type of consulting. And because it does take a certain caliber to attract and serve the type of clients that we're looking to help. And if it's not the right time now, maybe do some, I think Done For You is a great bridge, start with Done For You, get in the weeds, have your lessons learned, get your hands dirty, right? I think most people in our program came from a Done For You background. I came from Done For You branding. That's how I started out in my consulting and then moved to direct response consulting. And then build that confidence, build that business acumen so that you can move into consulting. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for just being you. You're so awesome. It was so great to have you on all the calls, smiling and nodding and enthusiastic and contributing to the conversations. And I completely agree with you. There was a lot of people coming from behind the scenes of very high level businesses and a few front facing influencers as well, like yourself. It was so exciting. So if people want to connect with you, they want to learn more about you, they're interested in your Clickworthy copywriting certification, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me on the show. I was so excited to get the opportunity to just, have a conversation with you and also to share about, what we do with copywriting and what you're doing with the consulting. So the best place to find me, my website is Sarah Anna Powers. There's no H on the Sarah. So it looks kind of funny, like SARAANNA. It's 2 A's in a row, powers.com. And then I'm also on Instagram at Sarah Anna Powers. You can DM me. I'm super responsive there. I am a people person. So I do like, if you found value in this, like I'd love to hear from you. And, if you have questions for me, happy to answer them. And then if you're interested in copywriting as potentially a business, or even if you're a business owner and you just know you're not seeing the conversions and you feel like it's probably your messaging that's holding you back, we have a great free guide. And you can find that at sarahannapowers.com/guide. So super easy. It's a guide to the business of copywriting, and it'll really talk with you about what do you need to be considering in your copy and messaging. And in particular, there's a section that has 7 specific strategies you can use to up level your conversions and your sales through your copy. So that's probably would be really helpful for some of your business owners in the crowd.
That's so awesome. Thank you so much,
Thank
Anna, for
you.
being here. I really appreciate it. Sarah Anna with no H.
Mhm.
And make sure to check her out. Make sure to say hello and make sure to tell other people about this podcast and about Anna when you get a listen. But thanks so much for being here.